Welcome to the Gandhi Katha. I am grateful to Charge d'Affaires, Sri Ravi Kumar Jain ji, Sri Sanjay Kumar, Attaché, and Srimati Mamta Talwar, Attaché of the Embassy of India in Ljubljana, as well as Paulona, who is coordinating this entire live streaming for hosting the Gandhi Katha this evening during this great challenging times of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, as well as the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. I am also thankful to Mr. Gaspar Zalonik of the Theosophical Library and Reading Room of Alma M. Carly Celia and Alexandra for co-hosting this online event, online Gandhi Katha, and also to my dear friend Professor Tanya Pitik, who is the ambassador and the researcher of osteoporosis and the director of the Institute of Osteoporosis in Ljubljana. Last year, I had visited 33 countries and gave 148 Gandhi Katha and lectures in all these places. I had come to Ljubljana from October 10th to 11th, and the Embassy of India had organized 2 talks in Slovenia. We were fascinated by the beautiful country of yours, which is a very spiritual country, full of God's mercy, nature's bounty, wonderful people, and your beautiful culture. We really felt so much at home as we were enveloped in so much warmth and love that we received from the people of Slovenia. We extend our warmest welcome to all of you and stand in solidarity during this coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic under which the entire world is reeling. But I would like to say and appreciate that your country was declared free of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic in May 14, becoming the first European country, and we must learn from you. So there is so much to learn and appreciate from your beautiful country. During last year's trip, I had also visited Italy and happened to go to the Vatican City, where Gandhiji had also visited in 1931 during his visit to Europe. His most memorable visit was to the Sistine Chapel. He stood transfixed at the statue of Jesus Christ with moist eyes. He went forward, he went to the side, and he went behind and just stood there for a very long time. Perhaps the Christian psalm, "When I survey the wondrous cross on which the Prince of Glory died, my richest gain I count but loss, and pour contempt on all my pride," which used to be sung in the all religious prayers in Gandhiji's ashrams or hermitage, he was repeating that psalm. So during all the fasts that Mahatma Gandhi undertook, and that was for 17 times for social cause, he always requested Meera Bahan, his British disciple, who was known as Madeline Slate and who was named as Meera Bahan by Gandhiji, to sing this hymn. If I would So we have some problem, we are incurring some problem with the technology that we have used today, and we had to change it, abandon it and go to a different site. So we are having this problem with music, so we beg your pardon. According to my understanding, Mahatma Gandhi's life was an epic of faith and endeavor. His faith was in truth, the ultimate reality of truth, and he endeavored to attain it through non-violence throughout his life till the very last breath. Gandhiji's adherence to truth, non-violence and purity of means has inspired me to give Gandhi Katha so that people can put their hearts into understanding Gandhiji and get inspired by his extraordinary ethical and moral leadership, spiritual life, revolutionary thoughts, his activism, his actions, and his lifelong service to humanity against all forms of injustice. Gandhiji used to remain positive under all circumstances, and that was his main trait or quality. During the Gandhi Katha today, I will be talking about many of his traits, and one can learn from him or from his qualities and change and transform one's life. He had faced many challenges in his life, and I think as the world is reeling under the impact of the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, and everyone is affected in some way or the other, it is important to face this situation humbly, with reverence to the coronavirus, gratitude and surrender to the divine forces which are beyond our control, fearlessly, intelligently, and with a positive outlook towards life. The more positive we, the ordinary people, will remain, the sooner we will be able to take this situation in an auspicious direction. For Gandhiji, that was his way of life. Perhaps the greatest source of strength for Gandhiji was in his faith in God. Truth was the deepest and most complete form of God. That faith gave him the constant awareness that he was nothing but an instrument in God's hands. He was to go wherever he was led. For him, the guidance of God constituted two things. One, he had to walk on the path enlightened by truth that was available to him in whatever measures and form. Two, he had to constantly gaze inwards through introspection. For him, self-introspection, self-examination, and self-purification was a constant process, and he kept asking a question which has been asked in our Indian civilization since the past 5,000 years. And the question is, who am I? Ko aham, what am I? And what is the purpose of my life? Every time he asked this question, he heard the inner voice at all his stages, different stages in life, that the purpose of life was only to serve people. And whatever he was doing at that particular stage in life, the inner voice told him to take the straight path of truth. And that is why, for him, purity of means was very, very important. The deeper the faith, the greater was the endeavor. And he said, truth is God. Faith in truth led Mahatma Gandhi to two other realizations. If each human beings were an aspect of God, as God is omnipresent and omnipotent, truth is omnipresent too. That in each one of us there is an element of truthfulness present. There is an element of godliness present. There is an element of the divine spark that is present. That means each one of us is capable of being good, being truthful, being good to others. His endeavor throughout his life was devoted to the search of that element of truth, to awaken it and to nurture it. This is the reason why he could feel oneness with everyone. This realization is not seen very clearly or easily or quickly by all of us. But for Gandhiji, it was very obvious that the same spark of the divine that was present in him was present in the other person also. It was present in all the creatures of the world. And that's why he considered the entire world as one family, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And that's what our sages and seers have told us. And that's why our sages has called us Mahamanam, the global citizen. And this is why Gandhiji did not have any enemies. He did not want to take revenge. He had no scores to settle. It was only merely to convey his love, compassion and respect to everybody that he met. That was another trait. He treated an individual as an individual without attaching labels. And that is why everybody felt that Gandhiji loved them very much in equal measures. Gandhiji was not a great speaker, but there was no better listener than Gandhi. And this quality made him enter the hearts of the other person, and he poured himself into the hearts of the other person and became one with them. This is the quality of oneness that each one of us has to cultivate. On June 22nd, which is approaching now, the world will be celebrating the UN International Yoga Day, which is the core of the Vedic science that was developed in the Indus Valley more than 5,000 years ago. I will talk about Mahatma Gandhi and yoga, which is a state of spontaneous creativity, love, compassion, joy and equanimity. These qualities are also known as the divine qualities, which are described by Lord Krishna in the 16th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. Each one of us has these qualities. They help us to live with spontaneity and lightness of being and guide us with a sense of freedom. That's what we learn from Mahatma Gandhi's life, that his life was rooted in this connection to the spirit, and he was able to solve the challenges or face the challenges that arose in his life with great ease and grace. Gandhiji's entire life is a union of Jnana Yoga or yoga of wisdom or knowledge, and that knowledge was such that it was turned into wisdom, and that wisdom was such that it was turned into his conduct. So therefore we can see and learn that mere knowledge is not sufficient. It has to be transformed into wisdom, which then must show in the conduct so that we become role models for others. That is Jnana Yoga. Then Karma Yoga, the yoga of right action, obligatory action, Niyatam Karma, as the Bhagavad Gita says, and the yoga of devotion or Bhakti Yoga, and Samatva Bhavana, Samatva Buddhi or oneness with everybody, and he followed all the Ashtangas of yoga. Gandhiji's lifestyle and practices give us the answers to the complex problems that we are collectively facing during the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, which is still raging all across the world. And now, since we are one family, anything that happens in one part of the world affects the other parts also. At this point, self-care needs to be uppermost in the minds during the coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic. For getting a sense of control over our own lives so that we can then extend help to others. Yoga gives us an integrated approach to mind, body and spirit. Our ancient seer, Maharishi Patanjali, set out to define the yogas in the Yoga Sutra as yoga having 8 limbs or Ashtangas. This is his classification of yoga as described in the Yoga Sutra. These 8 limbs form a sequence from the outer to the inner. Indeed, postures are important in modern yoga, but they form only one limb of Maharishi Patanjali's scheme, for which he states only that these meditative postures or asanas must be steady and comfortable. The 8 limbs are Yama or abstinence, Niyama or observances, asanas or postures, pranayam or breathing, pratyahara withdrawal, dharana concentration, dhyan meditation, and samadhi or absorption. The yamas are the ethical rules of Hinduism and can be thought of as moral imperatives as listed by Maharishi Patanjali in the Yoga Sutra 2.30, and these are ahimsa or non-violence or not harming other living beings, satya or truthfulness or non-falsehood, asteya non-stealing, brahmacharya chastity, aparigraha non-possession. All these 5 Mahavratas were part of the 11 observances that Gandhiji had introduced in all his ashrams or hermitages. He had set out the constitution of the ashram by introducing these 11 rules for all the ashram inmates to follow. Any rule that is followed for a lifetime becomes an observance or vrata. Gandhiji had seen in his childhood his mother Putlibai observing the strictest of vratas. And of course, the vratas give inner strength to anybody who observes them. But Gandhiji was not interested in personal salvation. He wanted this to be applied to the entire humanity. So one of the traits is that for him the individual virtues had to be converted into societal values, and therefore these 11 observances, which are acceptable in all the religions of the world, were part of his 11 observances. Niyama, second limb of yoga, is observances. That included virtuous habits and observances listed in Sadhana Pada verse 32. Niyamas help in personal growth, and they are Shaucha, purity, clear mind, clean mind, speech and body. And that was the definition of truth. What Mahatma Gandhi said is, utter as you think and act as you utter. That was his definition of truth. That means there should be harmony between your thoughts, your words and your deeds. This is the reason why we can see absolute transparency and openness in Mahatma Gandhi's life. There was no difference between his individual conduct and public life. Whatever he did, whatever he said, he acted accordingly, and he used to call himself a practical idealist. From his childhood, he had cultivated the habit that if he liked something or read something or saw something and he really liked it, he immediately started to practice that. Waiting was no option for him. He had said, one step is enough for me. That one step had to be taken immediately if we want to change ourselves. There is no time to wait. And Mahatma Gandhi said that an ounce of practice is worth more than tons of preaching. So he himself called himself as practical idealist. So for him, transparency and openness and harmony between his thought, speech and word was the definition of, thought, speech and action was the definition of truth. The second quality is santosha, contentment, acceptance, acceptance of one's circumstances as they are, in order to either live with them or try to change them. Optimism for oneself. Then the third niyama is tapas or sadhana, persistence, perseverance, austerity, asceticism and self-discipline. The fourth niyama was swadhyaya, study of the scriptures, study of self, self-reflection, introspection of self-thoughts, speech and action. All this, he did it every day, and that is why we see one of the traits in him as his ever-growing personality. Every day he learned something new and proceeded on the spiritual path. Then the fifth niyama is Ishvara Pranidhana, or contemplation on God, the Supreme Being, or Brahman as we call them, the true self, the unchanging reality. As with the yamas, Patanjali Maharishi explains how each of them, for example, leads to an inner state. It leads to a state where inner source of joy matter most and the craving for external source of pleasures ceases. Third limb of Ashtanga Yoga is asana or yoga postures. And Maharishi Patanjali discusses it or describes it as postures for meditation which should be steady and comfortable. Sthira Sukhamasanam, that is all he defines it as. The fourth one is pranayam or breath control. Prana is the life breath and that's what sustains us. So Gandhiji was talking about the 5 elements which are in the universe, and the same 5 elements, we are made up of the same 5 elements. Talking about air, he said that people do not know how to breathe properly. Therefore, they should be trained in pranayama. They should learn how to breathe properly as much as possible. They should sleep outside, keep the respiratory tract absolutely clean, and as well as learn to be with the nature. And people of Slovenia are so lucky. Your country is so beautiful. The air is so fresh and everything is perfect, and you are all very, very lucky people. Then withdrawal of senses or pratyahara. Gandhiji did this through silence or mauna. He used to keep silence for the entire day, starting from Sunday night to Monday night. And that is a very powerful tool for conserving the bodily energy. Followed by concentration, meditation, that is dharana, dhyan, and samadhi, which is absorption. All this we see in Gandhiji's prayers and practices of meditation and concentration that happen in his prayers and meditation. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is excellence at work. This verse advises us to perform all actions in an excellent manner. Kaushalam signifies doing work without attachment to the fruit of action and surrendering to the God. Lord Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 50, Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe sukruta dushkrute tasmad yogaya yujjasva yoga karmasu kaushalam. We see all these in Mahatma Gandhi's life, who lived according to the central messages of the Bhagavad Gita, selflessly, without attachment and possession, and working in the spirit of yajna or sacrifice. Amid the shock and panic, the catastrophe of COVID-19 has prompted some radical rethinking, and people are trying to reinvent their lifestyles. In our ancient culture, our ancestors, the sages and the seers, had already thought about this new and better and the right lifestyle. So I will explain about it in a little while, but before that I would like to tell you that the seeds of spirituality were sown in child Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi's life in India in his formative years till he was 18 years old. It flowered in London, where he had gone to study law from 1888 to 1891. He was 19, 20 and 21 years there. In London, he was first introduced to the Western civilization and read most of the works of the famous poets and philosophers of the West. And also, as he was a vegetarian, he had given a vow to his mother for remaining vegetarian. He became a member of the Vegetarian Society, and through that He met a lot of reformers and thinkers whose ideas had already made a lot of impression in Britain. Towards 2 years of his stay, in October 1990, two theosophists came to him wanting to study Sir Edward Arnold's The Song Celestial. Song Celestial was the translation of the Bhagavad Gita in English, but they wanted to study the original text in Sanskrit along with student Mohandas Gandhi. That was the time when Gandhi got very impressed by the wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, and especially the two shlokas, number 62 and 63 of the chapter 2nd, impressed him very much. And from then onwards, he lived according to the central messages of the Bhagavad Gita. These two theosophists, uncle and nephew, introduced Gandhi to Madame Helena Petrovna Blavatsky, Mrs. Annie Besant, and S.S. Iyengar in London. Gandhi began to read philosophical literature and other works such as The Light of Asia by once again Sir Edward Arnold and Madame Blavatsky's Key to Philosophy. These books stimulated in him the desire to read Hinduism. On March 26, 1891, Gandhi was enrolled as the associate member of the London Theosophical Society. Though his involvement with the society ended that same year when he sailed to India. In his first sojourn to Africa, Gandhi said that it was the influence of Theosophical Society that added strength to his religious discourse, religious sense. In South Africa, he almost met every theosophist and held discussions every day. Sometimes he addressed their meetings also, though he was a very shy and timid person, but by now he was able to hold forth about various religions because he had done deep study. So he understood that the chief thing about theosophy is the idea to cultivate brotherhood, and also that the main motto was Satyam Nasti Paro Dharma. There is no God greater than truth. So he had also read the great works of the philosophers, poets, and your wonderful people from Slovenia like Primus Truber, Franz Pressren, Simon Gregorczyk, Ivan Kenker, and Joe Plečnik. So all these great writers and poets' work he was familiar with. In 1904, in South Africa, after reading John Ruskin's book, Unto This Last, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi transformed his life and started leading a community life of self-control, voluntary poverty, self-reliance through bread labor. Now this bread labor word he had received from Leo Tolstoy's works and letters and his book, The Kingdom of God is Within You. So Gandhi acknowledged the influence of three mentors in his life. The first one was Kavi Raichand Bhai, whom he had met in India at the age of 22, who had introduced him or influenced him to non-possession, non-attachment, anasakti. The second one was John Ruskin through his book Unto This Last. And the third mentor in Gandhi's life was Count Leo Tolstoy through his books as well as his prolonged correspondence with Gandhi, though they had never met. So He established 4 ashrams in his lifetime. 2 in South Africa called Phoenix Settlement and Tolstoy Farm, and 2 in India, though for a short time he was in another ashram called Kocharav Ashram, but 2 which people know about is called the Sabarmati Ashram, which he established. Now ashrams are hermitages where people lead a life of sadhana or asceticism. But here in Gandhi's life, asceticism was combined with action. That was his difference, and that's why he comes across as the greatest karma yogi, having a combination of jnana yoga and bhakti yoga. And he established the Sevagram Ashram in 1936, that was in India, in Maharashtra, to live with his wife and other ashram inmates in poverty like the common villagers of India from 1936 to 1944. It is here that he started the constructive programs or the activities for establishing the justice and dignity of human beings, the poorest of the poor Indians. I am happy to inform you that I was born in Sevagram Ashram, and I spent a lot of time of my formative years in the ashram, and that is why it is such a pleasure, it gives me so much pleasure to talk about Gandhiji every day. For me, it is like proceeding in the spiritual path every day by learning from Gandhiji, by taking his name. My father was inspired by Gandhiji from his childhood, and he joined the non-violent freedom struggle and then came to the ashram, Sevagram Ashram. And after Gandhiji passed on, for the next 5 to 6 decades, we continued to walk on the path that Gandhiji had shown to humanity, and we dedicated our lives to serving others. So what I am telling you is based on what my father has told me, my own experience and understanding of Mahatma Gandhi, who has inspired a generation of people who followed the path and continue to do so today. Ashram life was of a very strict routine life from 4 a.m. to 9 p.m. Again, it was a life of voluntary self-control, punctuality, discipline, promptness, minimalistic living in harmony with nature, and that was the environmental credo of Gandhiji, of using minimum resources, recycling, reusing, and refusing, or that is, decreasing his wants. Agriculture for self-reliance, everybody had to make their own clothes, grow their own food, and it was a very frugal, simple, vegetarian diet, caring and sharing the vices and virtues of everybody, including happiness and joy, being ever vigilant. And Gandhiji used to walk every morning and evening for 18 kilometers. So he used to be with the nature and spend a lot of time outside. Daily morning and evening prayers, daily cleanliness, practices of cleanliness, sanitation and hygiene, community spinning. And I learned to spin and make my own clothes from the age of 5 years. Bread labor, disciplined life, constructive programs, and using every minute of time constructively. And time is the only non-renewable resource that all of us have if we are lucky, and therefore we must use it very, very carefully, learning from Gandhiji. And it is something that we have got to learn, because time once gone never returns, and especially in these times when we are under lockdown, it is very important to remember that we must utilize whatever time we have been granted in the pursuit of greater things and help others. Gandhiji's unique practices of silence, spinning, fasting, and prayer gave him the internal strength. Gandhiji carried out his experiments in health and well-being through nature cure, diet control, using all the five elements air, water, fire, earth, and space in therapies or treatment through hydrotherapy, sun bath, mud packs, and observance of silence. Gandhiji was aware of the need of physical and mental activity, which is why he introduced walking into his daily practice, and that was something that he had read in his childhood, that walking is good for health, and that habit continued with him. It was not only that he was able to meet new people every day, he was able to discover all the new and hidden places in all the cities that he lived in, and he maintained very good health. As you can see in any of his photographs, he maintained a very good health till the last moment of his life. He was a very fit person, and also he was very concerned about his health and well-being as well as the health and well-being of others. The ashram inmates not only participated but modified and validated all these practices of Mahatma Gandhi and continue to do so even till today, points to their relevance. So I would like to tell you that all the 11 observances, and I had only spoken about 5 in the beginning, Gandhiji introduced 2 auxiliary observances, which is fearlessness and control of the palate. He defined fearlessness as not being afraid of anyone, and nobody should be afraid of you either. So this was his definition, and he taught the first lesson of fearlessness when he came to India in 1915. From then onwards, he demonstrated the lesson of fearlessness, and he gave that mantra or that lesson to the entire country, which was under the British colonial regime and was very, very oppressed and afraid, and actually we were slaves for more than 200 years. To that he added aswada, or the control of the senses or the control of the palate. And this is what he stressed on, that we need to reduce our wants by self-control, self-regulation. And this is one of the things that we learn from Gandhiji. And he also, as I said, was very vigilant about his health. He said that our lifestyle should be such that we should not let any disease come anywhere near us, and every person should be capable of looking after his or her body, mind and spirit impeccably. Gandhiji comes out as the first environmentalist who, with his stunning premonition and knowledge, had declared that the earth has enough for man's needs but not for man's greed. He had said that greed will be the main reason for environmental degradation and the ecological crisis. This he had predicted more than a century ago, and see what we have got us into. He had also said that the earth, the air, the land and the water are not an inheritance from our forefathers, but on loan from our children, and we should hand it over to them as it was handed over to us. Last year on 2nd October, I was invited to deliver the keynote address at the United Nations Regional Office in Vienna and release the stamp brought out by the UN Postal Department with that quote which I have just told you. So the healthy crux of Gandhiji's teaching remains nature cure, disciplined life, fasting, prayer, frugal diet, silence, positive thinking, bread labor, vegetarianism, compassion, forgiveness, meditation, cleanliness of inner and outer cleanliness, and sanitation, and there are more, but very few people know that as a couple, Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi contributed immensely 123 years ago to public health crisis or emergencies and service of humanity in all the things that they faced. Gandhiji wanted to become a doctor from his very early age, but having been born in the Vaishnava family, he was told that his late father would not have approved of dissection involved in studying medicines. So he gave up that stream and opted to become a barrister. But his inner calling, or Swadharma as the Bhagavad Gita defines it, was to serve others, and that stayed with him forever. And Gandhiji dedicated his life to serving the entire humanity. That started from childhood in Gandhiji's life, when he used to serve his parents, and especially he served his father, who was bedridden for a very long time. Gandhiji extended his inner calling of leading a moral life in harmony with nature through nature cure, and maintained that health and well-being means one should keep one's body healthy without any disease and must carry on the day's routine without getting tired. In 1896, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi took training in nursing from Cottage Hospital in South Africa and volunteered to care for the patients. In 1897, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi looked after a South African leprosy patient and who had come to him out of desperation because he had been cast away. Gandhi nursed him and then also made sure that a hospital is built for him. In 1899 to 1902, during the Second Anglo-Boer War, Barrister Mohandas Gandhi established the Indian Natal Ambulance Corps, and along with 300 free Indians and 800 indentured Indian labor, he selflessly carried out taking care of the wounded Boers as stretcher bearers. In 1904, an outbreak of bubonic plague occurred in Johannesburg in the settlement of the Indian indentured labor, and who were living in a settlement called as Coolie settlement in very, very unhygienic and squalid conditions. Both Mahatma Gandhi and Kasturba Gandhi went there. They quarantined the patients, took them to another segregated place, cleaned and sanitized the place, and then treated them through nature cure and counseled the family members about all the preventive measures. During the 1906 Zulu War uprising also, Gandhiji looked after the wounded and badly mauled Zulu prisoner of war. And in 1904, when the First World War broke out, at that time Gandhiji had left the shores of South Africa on 18th of July 1914, and immediately he started recruiting people for the ambulance corps in London, but they had to return to India in 1915. But in 1918, the Spanish influenza pandemic had devastated the world, just like what is happening now. Gandhiji opened up his ashram as a quarantine center, maintained physical distance, segregated the patients, made sure that they eat nutritious diet to boost their immunity, and gave their families the counseling for coping up mentally, physically and spiritually during that pandemic. And the same lessons are valid even today. Coronavirus COVID-19 is the global pandemic of our times, but Spanish flu pandemic remains the deadliest in the modern history, killing at least 50 million people and infecting more than 500 million. The 1918 H1N1 virus played a critical role in altering the course of history in India. Just like in the case of coronavirus COVID-19 pandemic, in 2020, there was no known medicine available to treat the Spanish flu. The world of medical science was in a nascent stage back then. Developing a vaccine against Spanish flu was out of question. The first flu vaccine came into the scene only in 1940. The first antibiotic medicine came in 1918, years after Spanish flu had ravaged the human population. Till then, it was social distancing, wearing masks, quarantine, and washing hands that saved the world, particularly the developed ones. But Gandhiji advised people in India to do similarly, and that's why we need to learn from Gandhiji in this COVID-19 pandemic also, to cope up physically, mentally, and spiritually, and make sure that we learn how to live with coronavirus, COVID-19 pandemic now, and the changes that will occur after that. Gandhiji used to call himself the commander-in-chief of the non-violent army, and he used to be the first one to go in any potentially dangerous situation. And this is because he used to treat all work as God-given work. Everything was of equal reverence to him, and he did it in the attitude of sacrifice. He wrote a wonderful book called Key to Health in 1906 for the benefit of the readers of the Indian Opinion, the paper that he used to bring out for raising public opinion. He started writing articles on health and published it as a book under the title of Guide to Health. And it was widely read, but it was not available in India when he came back. So in 1942, when he was imprisoned in Aga Khan Palace jail, during the time he was leading the Quit India movement, he got the leisure time to write the book again, because it was not available in India. So it was translated in all the Indian languages, and English translation also appears, and it went to the West and was translated in all the European language. The result was that the book became, Gandhi said, one of the most popular books of all my writings. So he said he had written it casually, but maybe because the popularity could have been because of his novel view, which was different than the orthodox methods adopted by doctors and Vaidyas, or the traditional health practitioners. So he gave a new name to that, and the new name was Key to Health. Anyone who observes, he said, the rules of health mentioned in this book will find that he has got in it a real key to unlock the gates leading him to health. He will not need to knock at the doors of doctors or the traditional health practices, or Vaidyas as they are called, from day to day. That he wrote on 27th August 1942, and the contents were the human body, air, water, food, condiments, tea, coffee, cocoa, intoxicants, opium, tobacco, chastity, and about all the 5 elements, which are earth, water, ether, sun, and air. Gandhiji also had said that in order to keep physically, mentally, and spiritually healthy, we should have perfect understanding of our bodies, which is made up of 5 elements that are found in nature. And that is what has been told by our ancestors, by our seers and rishis of India. And as I mentioned, they are water, air, fire, earth, and space. For the wellness of our bodies, the balance and harmony between all these 5 elements is necessary. So Gandhiji always stressed importance on treating it through nature cure using all these 5 elements. We need to learn from Mahatma Gandhi, from his spiritual life in these times of the COVID-19 pandemic, to cope up mentally, physically, and spiritually. And the COVID-19 pandemic is clearly pointing out the way forward. If we look at it clearly, many lessons are very clear, and some are still unknown, surrounding us in uncertainty. This uncertainty is causing mental stress, anxiety, existential crisis, fear of extinction, and fear of death. And the mass psychology and living in depression and grief is pointing out towards this fact. We are collectively grieving for the loss of our known life. However, at a deeper level, for the wellness and well-being of humans, we have to learn to coexist in harmony with Mother Nature, because our mere existence depends on living in harmony and within the rhythm of the nature, supporting the nature by taking care of all its creations. For all of us, we have no other way than the way of standard prevention of taking care of oneself and each other. So this is, we have to say no to injustice, intolerance, hatred and war, and must live in peace, brotherhood, interdependence, compassion and oneness. And our Sanskrit proverb says, Yatha Pinde Tatha Brahmande. You are the universe within the universe. As with the self, so is the universe. What is going on within you is the same as is going on outside in the universe also. So I will end with Mahatma Gandhi's blessings of the forecast that he had made, that peace is the only positive force which will lead us from darkness towards light. And with this, I would like to express my gratitude to Charge d'Affaires Sri Ravi Kumar ji for hosting this Gandhi Katha, and for all the people in the embassy as well as in the Theosophical Society library for supporting me in this entire endeavor. Thank you and namaskar.